we'll invite him to speak about that. And shortly after that, we'll invite Madam Fatih Nze Hassan to present the skills portal for youth employment. And then we're going to have 3 technical sessions today. The first technical session we're going to have will look at the future of skills and jobs. This is something that has come up a lot from our earlier speakers, and we'll look at it more concretely with a wide array of speakers. The second technical session, we look at youth digital competencies and creative medias, what opportunities exist, what approaches currently exist. And then the third session will look at empowering young women and girls through digital skills. I will invite Mr. Omar to start to take us through a presentation of the continental strategies on TVET, education, technology, and innovation. Okay.
Good morning once again. That is not so encouraging. Good morning once again. I am now encouraged. Thank you very much. I want us to continue with the discussions, and then our first presentation is a brief one on the continental frameworks that guide our engagement in the skills and education sectors. So I will briefly mention the role and mandate of the African Union, then our premier continental document, development document, the Agenda 2063. Then I will go to the 3 continental strategies, the strategy for education, the strategy for science and technology, and lastly, the continental strategy for technical and vocational education and training. I believe all of us have heard and know about the African Union, but I want to signpost one critical issue about the African Union Commission. In accelerating the political and the socio-economic integration and development of the continent and all its member states, and particularly the need to achieve greater unity, solidarity, and peace between Africa and African countries. This is the core mandate of the Commission, and we seek to do this to accelerate social, economic integration of the continent and to foster cooperation among member states. The strategies that I will come to are important in that they serve as guidelines for key sectors to be adopted and implemented at both national and regional levels. I am aware that their member states are unique in their various facets, so there can never be a one-shoe-fits-all. At the continental level, the strategies we develop are like a guide, and they are expected to cascade downwards, and depending on the uniqueness of the member states, then they can be incorporated into member states' plans, national plans and activities and programs. That is our intention. The premier continental document that all of us must have heard about is Agenda 2063, which is a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the continent. Builds on and seeks to accelerate implementation of both past and existing initiatives. We are also alive to the global global sustainable development goals, SDGs, and through the Africa's common position, the 2 documents go hand in hand towards accelerated development of the continent. Just one thing about the Agenda 2063 and its nexus with what we are discussing in the next 2 days. there is a special call to action in the agenda to strengthen technical and vocational education and training through investments in high-quality TVET centers, enhancing greater links with industry. I am pleased that amongst us, we did not forget the private sector, who are very well represented here this morning. Greater links with industry and alignment with labor markets is key to the transformation of our skills development and TVET ecosystems in the continent, so as to increase the skills profile, employability, and entrepreneurship of young people in our African continent. All these are encapsulated in Agenda 2063. The Continental Education Strategy for Africa aims at reorienting education systems in the continent, education and training systems in the continent to meet the knowledge and competencies, skills, innovation, and the creativity required to drive Africa's development. So there are key facets of this continental strategy, education strategy for Africa that envisages a coordinated approach in the development of education and training systems, and particularly meeting the demand and supply nexus of skills in our training and employment ecosystems. The training and the education must be relevant in order to address the labor market needs and address even the jobs that are expected to be created in the future. How then can this be done? Before I go to the key initiatives, among the main concerns, and particularly is the deficits in human capital that is in most of our African economies. It is important that as we strive to implement the continental education strategy for Africa, we are alive to the fact that we need to address emerging issues of youth employment and employability in the continent. Among the key initiatives that the Commission is undertaking is, as indicated, the Pan-African University with its 5 thematic areas: basic sciences, technology and innovation. This is at Jomo Kenyatta University in Kenya. We have the governance, humanities and social sciences in University of Ibadan in Nigeria. We have water, energy sciences and climate change at the Central Africa region in Cameroon. And at Tlemcen University, we have the space sciences, water and earth sciences in Tlemcen University in Algeria, and expected soon space and earth sciences in South Africa. Then we have the programs as indicated, the African Harmonization Strategy for Higher Education, Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework. These are frameworks that are geared towards enhancing mobility of students, mobility of lecturers across our African countries in order to enhance integration of the continent. Among the key strategic concerns, while we talk about education sometimes, is the non-recognition and non-comparability of skills and educational qualifications across our national borders. It is important that our education systems address this, and that recognition and transparency of qualifications are recognized. This is part and parcel of what harmonization strategy that the African Union Commission is spearheading. so that at the end, our strategies and frameworks are able to make individual graduates able to explain their qualifications, and there can be that transparency in explaining your qualifications in order to enhance employment. One other key facet of the continental education strategy is partnerships. Strong partnerships is emphasized on. And yesterday we launched one of the key facets of these partnerships, the TVET cluster, among other partnerships that have been developed so that various players see themselves in the implementation of the continental education strategy are the education planning cluster coordinated by ADEA, peace and education. We want an all-rounded, our education systems to provide and graduates who are all-rounded, and that's why we find it important to have elements of peace and education, teacher development, ICT in education, coordinated by GESCI, Global E-Schools and Communities Initiative, who are also our hosts for this forum. Then the STEM education coordinated by Semester. Strong partnerships are the engine in which we expect that the continental education strategy will be implemented across the continent. Without strong partnerships and without coordinated strong partnerships, then we will only be impacting in our small pockets. But when we are well coordinated as envisaged in continental education strategy, then our efforts in our various spaces will be consolidated to make Africa where we want it to be, as espoused in Agenda 2063. Then the next strategy I will talk about is the Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy, whose mission is to accelerate the transformation of Africa into an innovation-led, knowledge-based economy. Key priorities are in the Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy are eradication of hunger and ensuring food security through practical implementation of the various innovative policies that we have, preventing control and controlling diseases and ensuring well-being. The issue of agriculture is very, very important when we are talking about the implementation of science, technology, and innovation strategy, creation of wealth. And I'm proud that in the opening remarks of His Excellency, the Minister, he mentioned very, very clearly the development of an innovation agency. I believe this, coupled with what is envisaged in the implementation of science, technology, and innovation strategy, will go a long way in impacting on the innovation potentials and harnessing the requisite tools that most of or all our countries have in spurring innovation in the continent. This is key in the implementation of science, technology, and innovation strategy. Among the key programs being undertaken by the African Union Commission is the Outer Space Flagship Program that talks about harmonizing space activities to ensure that we benefit from observatories and earth sciences. The Global Monitoring for Environment and Security, GMES, this is supported by the European Union. Research grants programs with an open call for proposal designs to mobilize Africa's scientific excellence. Kwame Nkrumah Scientific Awards, both at national, regional, and continental levels. Pan-African Intellectual Property Organization, that was mentioned earlier, hosted here. AOSTI, ASRIC, and the African Scientific, Technical, and Research Commission in Abuja. All these are continental projects aimed at enhancing science, technology, and innovation in Africa, and enhancing the elements of innovation. Then, last but not least, the Continental Strategy for Technical and Vocational Education and Training, TVET, with its strategic framework for the development of national policies and its special approach based on a paradigm shift that sees development of skills for employability and employment and to foster youth employment. So skills then becomes a tool towards enhancing employability and employment. Objectives of the TVET strategy include developing creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, and then promoting and ensuring that our TVET systems are efficient, cost-effective, quality, relevant, and attractive. It is not interesting for those of us who are in technical and vocational education training that in most of our countries, TVET is relegated to those who may not have made it to the regular education and to universities. This is a phase of TVET that is fast changing because it is not also lost to us that technical and vocational education and training is the engine for employability in the continent. We only need to enhance it, improve the attractiveness of TVET in the continent to ensure that the productivity we envisage with the implementation of the continental TVET strategy is ensured. Therefore, there is that need that I've mentioned of a paradigm shift in the perception. And it starts with us. In our various stations, how do we treat those who join us from the vocational training centers? When we talk about vocational skills, when you are formatting your vacancies, technical vacancies, are you featuring somewhere somebody important in your various fields, somebody from the vocational education and training, somebody with these competencies? I think, and this goes strongly to employers, you can assist us in the policy making spectrum to ensure that the face of TVET is turned around, particularly with how the graduates of technical and vocational training are perceived. I believe that our training systems are a solution to youth employability problems and challenges in the continent. Some of the current initiatives we are undertaking at HRST includes the Skills Initiative for Africa. My colleague Fati will mention a bit more on this in the coming presentation. Assessment of skills development and employment ecosystems in African member states. The first one was undertaken here in Tunisia in the partnership with USAID and FHI 360. There will be a presentation on the importance of this assessment of TVET ecosystems in order to address key challenges that are unique in every member state. We hope that we will go on with the assessment and assisting member states to improve on their skills development ecosystems. Then strengthening of skills recognition and worker mobility. I've mentioned this. As a commission, we aim at promoting integration. And integration is only possible when people move across borders, not only to trade, but also to have their services in neighboring member states. How do we enhance this through recognition protocols to enhance the worker mobility? I've mentioned about strengthening the attractiveness of TVET and work-based learning, such as apprenticeships, traineeships, volunteering, and exchange programs. I'm pleased to report here that at the African Union Commission, one of our flagship projects is the Youth Volunteer Corps, which is aimed at strengthening work-based learning opportunities for young graduates across Africa. And it is making tremendous difference in the continent. And then yesterday we launched the TVET cluster, among others that have been launched before. This is a coalition of stakeholders to support youth skills development and employment in the continent. We envisage that once these three key strategies of the Human Resource Science and Technology Department of the African Union Commission are implemented in our member states, definitely we will make a significant improvement. We will make a significant mark towards innovation, towards employability, and towards the development of our African economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ouma, for the presentation on the continental frameworks. The key question is, this is a lot, and how do we bring all of this together? Perhaps we could establish mechanisms that might help us bring all of these discussions together. On that note, I would like to invite Ms. Fatih Nziazan to present one of such mechanisms, the Skills Portal for Youth Employment.
Excellence, Monsieur Gaston Moussemana Bongala, ministre de l'Enseignement primaire, secondaire et professionnel, République démocratique du Congo. Excellence, Monsieur Abdulkadri Tidjani Idrissa, ministre de l'Enseignement professionnel et technique du Niger. Excellence, Professeur Ahmed El Gouchei, vice-ministre de l'Éducation et de la formation technique d'Égypte. Your Excellency Abdelhafiz El Sadiq Abdelrahim, Minister of Education of Sudan, Minister in charge of Youth, Ministry of Education of Sudan, Mr. Shem Okore Bodo, Association for the Development of Education in Africa, Your Excellency Mr. Buti Manamela, Deputy Minister of Higher Education in South Africa, Excellence, Monsieur Adoum Dangay Nokourguet, ministre de la formation professionnelle et des petits métiers du Tchad. Dr. Justin Kwekem, secrétaire général du ministère de l'Emploi et de la formation professionnelle du Cameroun. Excellence, Sahabi Kalfala, ambassadeur de la République de Tunisie auprès de l'Union africaine. Dr. Kevit Desai, Permanent Secretary in charge of Technical Vocational Education and Training in the Ministry of Education in Kenya, distinguished international and local delegates, dear colleagues and partners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good morning. Avant toute chose, permettez-moi de remercier les autorités tunisiennes pour leur accueil chaleureux et pour les facilités accordées à l'occasion de notre séjour. C'est toujours avec un sincère plaisir que nous revenons en Tunisie. Now, before we get to the content, let me suggest to introduce a little bit of digital dimension to this presentation. As you have seen on the screen, I'm suggesting that after I introduce the portal, we'll take questions from the floor. But we will ask you to submit your question through Slido following these instructions. And you can also like questions from the audience, from other participants, so that we can see which ones attract more attention from the audience, and we can answer them in priority. Please go to slido.com and submit the event code -XO029 and submit your questions along the presentation. Thank you. I'd like to give you a quick introduction to the Aspire portal, by first giving you an overview of the NEPAD mandate and role. The core of our mandate is to translate continental strategic frameworks into concrete programs and projects. As my colleague, Mr. Ouma, mentioned, the overarching vision for all the strategic frameworks within the African Union environment is the Agenda 2063 that was adopted by all African Union member states in 2015. Agenda 2063 has 7 aspirations, and number 6 reads, an African whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of the African people, particularly women and youth. Agenda 2063 is being delivered as we speak by various stakeholders, African Union Commission, African Union member states, grassroots actors, not to forget the support from the development partners. But as NEPAD agency, we have a specific mandate within this ecosystem and a specific role which requires us, amongst other things, to serve the continent with information and knowledge that strengthen evidence-based policy design and implementation of development programs. Our role also requires us to strengthen institutional capacity through peer-to-peer learning and exchange by promoting homegrown African solutions to address local challenges and opportunities. And we achieve these objectives, these goals, through partnership and collaboration with key stakeholders. It is within this context that the African Skills Portal for Youth Employment and Entrepreneurship, or ASPIRE, was developed as part of the Skills Initiative for Africa. 3 years ago, NEPAD agency conducted a study that showed that 440 million youth will be on the African job market by 2030. This is 440 million youth that are already born. Now, I don't know how any of us is able to sleep knowing that. As part of our mandate and contribution to this issue, we reflected on the following. How could Africa be best served in terms of knowledge? What is the most relevant knowledge that needs to be made available to African countries, development actors, practitioners, you in this room? In a word, the whole ecosystem operating and trying to tackle the issues of unemployment, underemployment, and missed business opportunities for the youth. How could we motivate, create peer pressure and learning spaces to influence the necessary reforms? How would we know where there were still gaps and challenges? How could benchmarking and showcasing success and failures and progress can strengthen learning and transformation? To this end, we believe that a portal that can share personal stories, share publications, and other knowledge products will go a long way to inform and transform the skills development ecosystem and indeed improve employment opportunities, potentials for African youth in formal employment, self-employment, including unleashing entrepreneurship and innovation capacity among African youth. Today, as we are here talking about digital space, we are pleased to share with you what we believe will serve as a go-to portal for knowledge sharing and exchange, advocacy, policy and program development, in the area of enhancing youth employment creation, skills development, and entrepreneurship development. And so through the Skills Initiative for Africa, one of the projects, the African Skills Portal for Youth Employment, will serve as a platform, will serve you as a platform for sharing best practices along development projects on the ground. Working with the African Union Commission, and through the support of the German Development Cooperation, the portal showcases country by country policy frameworks and best practices which are generated from the ground. As the acronym implies, ASPIRE, we hope the portal will inspire you to contribute and collaborate with us and other stakeholders to give life to the portal as a shared knowledge space. Thank you. Now if we can have your attention to just look at the presentation we have prepared so that you can be introduced to the portal, and then we will take your questions. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. As Madame Fati said, we aspire that the African Skills Portal for youth employment and skills development will become the go-to portal to share, collaborate, upscale in African-owned and African-tested good practices. But let's have a look.
Solutions to local and global problems. With more young people than any other continent, Africa has the potential to set trends rather than follow them. What do we need to help our youth reach their full potential?
Good health, economic growth,
better education,
using more clean energy,
and better jobs.
Africa needs skills and decent jobs to grow local economies and the tools for young people to become job creators themselves.
In 5 years, I want to see myself qualified as an electrical engineer and running my own electrical company.
Qualified electrician specializing in electronics, owning a business, creating more jobs.
I want to see myself to be a qualified engineer and owning my own company.
With confidence in their rights and responsibilities.
Be a teacher, teach people more about electricity.
How can we share our ideas about what works best? SPY is an online portal designed to build a vibrant community of practice on skills and employment in Africa, where everyone can have their say.
My name is Amanda Mkya. I'm a Go for Gold alumni. The Go for Gold model, it can be applied in any industry.
A place where we can partner with others to create a strong foundation of expertise and good practice, and ways to provide quality education, mentoring, and sustained learning.
All it needs are committed partners which can take students from high school into any form of internship. The program in itself is just a developmental pipeline that identifies students at their early stage in high school, and then it takes them through the industry until they graduate and they come back as young professionals.
We have many ways to connect excellent minds and navigate this wealth of ideas. Join us in exploring Africa's new frontiers by helping us map out the way ahead. Let's share what we know about what works. Let's explore what we have and make it even better. Let's start a conversation.
Thank you. Excellencies, please allow me to quickly take you through the portal and what it offers. So this is Aspire. Aspire is a knowledge repository for sharing good practices, lessons learned, good news, events, and knowledge resources. We have already set up communities of practice for enhanced collaboration and peer learning. These COPs have been created for the TVET expert group and the TVET cluster, which was launched yesterday. In addition, the portal allows you to specifically search for good practices by country and by predefined indicators. These are TVET delivery and structures, TVET strategies and legislative frameworks, employment promotion, equitable access, and private sector cooperation. The map that you see here is very interactive. If I was to click on Nigeria, my country of origin, you would find a good practice in Nigeria, which has proven to be successful. Or let's look at Kenya. There are already good practices in Kenya. These good practices were identified and validated by African TVET experts through a competitive process. For instance, the Pitch Africa competition program has been identified as one of these good practices. This project, implemented in Kenya, aims to upscale employment promotion and entrepreneurship. It does this by providing technical and financial support to TVET institutions, startups, and entrepreneurs. It also has an online database of more than 100,000 TVET experts throughout the continent. This was one of the experts or good practices that we have identified we would like to showcase. The portal also allows you to get a snapshot what is happening in the country on the ground. If I was to go to Kenya again, we would now see a few statistical information. What is Kenya's vision in terms of TVET? How is this vision implemented? What is Kenya's strategy? How is policy making done? And what are the TVET delivery and structures in Kenya to achieve youth employment in this country? As I highlighted earlier, we have identified 5 predefined indicators, and employment promotion has been identified as one of the key issues that has to be upscaled on the continent. Under employment promotion, the portal already features a variety of good practices in terms of employment promotion. And most importantly, the portal invites you to share, upload, and share your stories in terms of good practices for skills development. These good practices will be validated and approved by the TVET expert group. Thank you very much. We hope, as Madame Fati already mentioned, that Aspire will inspire you to collaborate with us, work with us and other stakeholders to promote good skills development on the continent. We would like to invite you to join us outside at our exhibition stand, where we'll be happy to take you through the portal in more detail. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. In fact, I have a suggestion here. I was talking to my friend and my chair also in the TVET expert group, George. Aspire doesn't mean anything. I mean, if somebody wants to search for, in Africa, want to search for anything related to employment or jobs or even TVET or whatever, there is no way for him to look for Aspire. What Aspire doesn't mean anything. It's an abbreviation. So I think we should put it in a different way, like Job Africa or Africa Job or Skills Africa or something like this, just for anybody when he search or Google the internet for something related to the jobs in Africa, then he will go directly to the portal. Otherwise, Aspire doesn't mean anything, actually. So this is just a suggestion. So if you just allow me, I will tell you a very short story. I'm here actually not because I'm deputy minister, but initially because I am a member in the TVET expert group, the African Union TVET expert group. That was in 2015, actually. At some day in September 2015, I received an email from Nicholas Oma, and he was preparing to establish, actually, the African Union was preparing to establish the TVET expert group. So I was wondering, where did you get my name from? So I knew later on that because I was an active member in, or a contributor to the e-forum in the UNESCO UNIVAC portal in Bonn, Germany. They have a very efficient e-forum. And because I was active in this, so they picked my name from there, something like this. So from that portal, from that e-forum, actually, I learned a lot regarding Tibet issues. So it will be very good thing to include an e-forum within the portal, because it will actually it will be a platform actually for knowledge sharing regarding Tibet employment, jobs, anything related to this. So because back to that e-forum, UNESCO UNIVOG, it's an efficient one, and most of the people who contribute to it are from Africa. So I think they will love it, and it will be something very good to attract people to the portal. Thank you.
Just a few comments on the portal. I think that this is a very good initiative that NEPAD has embarked upon, because access to information is actually power. Young people need to have access to information. What can I do in order to acquire certain skills required for particular jobs? So the portal is a good start. But it's also important to understand that a portal by itself does not create jobs, but it serves as a knowledge platform that can lead to young people acquiring or entering into the world of work. So there are a few things that perhaps we need to highlight here. One is about sustainability. How do we ensure that this portal will continue to have the human resource required for updating the portal, the technological resources required, as well as the funding required in order to keep this portal alive? These are issues of sustainability. There is also the issue of communication. How will young people out there in rural areas, in a remote village in a particular country, know about the existence of this portal? So communication is key, and therefore it's important, perhaps, for NEPAD to begin to see how they can advertise the portal in national media in various countries, so that young people can get access to this portal. It's also important that the portal is linked to training providers, training institutions, colleges that are in skills development. It's important that they can then advise their students of the existence of this portal. Private sector engagement is extremely important. We need to begin to cultivate people in the business world who appreciate this portal and who are prepared to support the portal. We need to see how we can identify mentors that can also be available. Their information can be available on the site so that young people can click and make a choice, select a mentor that could help. I think it's also important that the portal begins to look at jobs for the present and the future, and also advise young people how to acquire the skills required for these jobs. It's extremely important. And also to help in the transition from education to employment. How do you do it as a young man who has acquired certain skills? It's important that the portal address some of these issues. And of course, we need to pay special attention to the needs of persons with disability. They also will have a role to play in national development, so they need to be supported. Which institutions offer particular programs that are well adapted to the needs of persons with disability? And we also perhaps may want to link the portal to other portals that deal with similar issues of employment and also how to look for jobs. It's also essential that we see if we can also put information on some of the incubation hubs in Africa that can support young entrepreneurs in terms of technology and funding. And finally, it will be interesting to begin to ask ourselves, I mean, the portal designers and NEPAD, to begin to see how they can have feedback mechanisms from those who access the portal to be able to know whether they are succeeding, whether they are meeting the objectives for the portal has been established. These are just a few comments which I think can enhance the beauty and the usefulness of the portal. But I repeat, this is a good start, and I'm sure that young people everywhere, once they have access to it, will have a lot of information which will help them to enter the world of work successfully. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these comments. I would like to take this opportunity to respond to some of the, well, to the issues that were raised. Honorable Deputy Ministry, you mentioned that the ASPIRE acronym that was the result of hard work from the team. Because in the beginning, it was, the name was SPY. And SPY, Skills Portal, yes, Skills Portal for Youth Employment. This is worse, I agree with you. So we came up with this, ASPIRE, because actually we wanted it to be the acronym of what it is. But the point is taken, it's not appealing. We can also go to the drawing board to make it more appealing and reflect more the issues that it's supposed to solve or contribute solving, which are related to jobs in Africa, jobs creation. So the point is taken. The point of the creation of an e-forum on the portal, it's also well taken, and I think that the community of practice is also one of the cornerstones that we can build on to create this. And thank you very much for these comments, and we look forward to having more feedback through the TVET expert group. Now on the sustainability, I think this is a $1 million question for a lot of practitioners in the room. When you are confident enough to launch a project, you have some funding, you have some visibility for some time. But you don't know how it's going to happen next. But the beauty of the fact that this is hosted by NEPAD, and if you have noticed, it's also within the NEPAD overall portal, it means that it will be catered for in some manner or another. NEPAD has a portal that reports on everything we're doing across all the sectors. And now this portal is being introduced into this portal. Abiola here is not a project team member, she's a NEPAD core member. She has been working on this portal. Obviously we have some resources, project resources that are supporting, but at the end of the day, we will find a way. On the young people, how can they benefit and how can we communicate to them? It also responds to a question from the floor, asking as a youth, how can I benefit from this portal? And I think this is related to a very important question that we don't have a definite answer today. And yesterday we discussed this. Who should really be the target of this portal? We have identified the practitioners, the experts, policymakers, And when I say practitioners, it goes down to the teachers in the schools. But then if you want to open it to the youth themselves as target for this portal, then it's another question and it's another requirement that you're opening. Obviously, we should also look into getting more feedback from the youth because they are the ultimate beneficiaries of everything we're doing. But maybe not in an individual basis where they would come and log in the portal as a youth. Maybe this should be done, this could be done through youth organization that could be part of your ETSPEC groups, for example. So we're happy to take this conversation forward. On the private sector engagement, yes, how could they support the portal? This is a very good question, but I like to broaden it a little bit outside even the portal. The youth should be at the centerpiece of everything we're doing around job creation and skills development, because honorable ministers, yes, absolutely. So this is a consequence. Honorable ministers, you are not going to create jobs. This private sector is going to create jobs. And they are the ones in need for the skills that we're going to develop with the youth. So we are also encouraging the private sector to support policy making, to support identification of the critical skills that should benefit from a special focus, and to contribute in kind and financially to the skills development, because they are the ones benefiting from the skills development. So as NEPAD, we're happy to report that we are in the process of building a platform, a continental platform where we could engage with the private sector at national level so that we make sure that we taking inspiration of what is going on in other countries, but replicating within our own context, see how we can engage more closely and how can we support the countries to engage more closely in a structured manner with the private sector so that they can play their role. And we're happy that Business Africa is here, and we hope that they will be part of this structure. Now on the link with other portal that deal with similar issues. This is a very important thing because we don't want to duplicate. As much as we don't want to duplicate, we know that there's so little that is done on this sector that it's very hard to do something that is not useful. Callistus Juma used to say that when you're in a desert and you plant a tree, even though there's another tree, you're not duplicating because it's already a desert. So we believe that we should work with partners. I think that ILO is also, International Labour Organization is also in the room. We have approached them and they were kind enough to receive us a couple of months back. We have discussed many things. Among these things are how can we make sure that our platforms are working in dissemination of mutual content. So this is absolutely something that is in our radars. So do we have, who's moderating? We're done? Okay. So thank you very much. I think that there's another question that didn't go through the Slido. I wouldn't decide on this. I let the moderator.
I know that question. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Can we give them a round of applause, please? So I was reading through the Slido, and there are a few questions, but I think one that came out quite strongly was around conversations happening at the back, bilateral conversations happening at the back of the room. So this is to kindly appeal to everyone to please not have these conversations, and if you absolutely have to, kindly step out for the conversation. Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll be moving to the next session. Now, as we, yes, you could. Okay, so we'll take it very quickly because we are out of time.
Thank you. I have just some remarks, Mukhtar, from OCOSOC African Union. Concerning Slido, first of all, we are in a conference here. What we need, the people raising questions, we want to know them and we want to see them. So we are in conference, we are not debating now in the continental level. When we are debating in the continental level, we can use this program. But now here, every participant is a value for us. He's a number. So we need to know him, who is he, and what he's aiming by his questions. This is one mark. The second thing is concerning the portal. Who's going to own the portal? Is it the NEPAD or the African Union? This is very important and essential question, Mr. Ministers, and we have to take care of this issue because for the future purposes. The third thing is we have a lot of experience with the international portals for job and job. The essential problem is job creation, not to looking for a job, because as a matter of fact, you know, in Africa we have demand more than supply. So how we can increase our supply for a job? This is the issue which we have to work for the medium and small size enterprises, and how we can direct youth to establish, you know, companies and new and small, medium-sized projects, where we include all the stockholders and like bankers and private sectors and so. So this is our concern about, and this is the aim of our contribution and participation in this conference. And it's very important to take care of those points because as I mentioned and as I said, when you come to .com also, we have now already the other commissioners for the infrastructure, they launched already Africa.org, so .Africa. So .Africa is our domain. We have to use it because this is already approved by the head of states as a domain for African continent. So wherever we go for an official website or portals or anything, we have to use our domain .Africa. So those are my concerns, and I wish that Your Excellency take care of this and consider them for the in-depth negotiation and talks inside this conference. Thank you, Mr. Minister.
All right. Thank you very much, and I think the point around knowing who is asking the question is an important one, and we'll take that to the other sessions. Around ownership, I would let Ms. Fatih speak about it very quickly. She spoke about it a little bit when she was speaking about sustainability, but I'll let her speak about it a little bit more now.
Thank you very much, Sylvester. So who owns the portal? NEPAD is the owner of the portal. We have developed the portal with the support of partners, but we are the owners, and it is actually a sub-part of the NEPAD.org website. On the job creation, you are absolutely right. The portal is called Skills Portal for Youth Employment and Entrepreneurship, so all these issues are indeed part of the mandate and the objectives of the portal. And I believe ECOSOC is part of the TVET cluster, so there's a space there for ECOSOC to push these issues forward. And then on the .Africa, as I mentioned, the portal is part of the NEPAD website, so it's hosted by the NEPAD website. Now as to the question is really, should NEPAD.org then be NEPAD.Africa? It's a very interesting question. I think it's a little bit above my paycheck, but it's something that we will definitely raise with our principals. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. If there are no, I'm sure we'll still have other opportunities to engage on the portal in the course of the day and tomorrow. Thank you. Please, let's give them a round of applause.